Welcome everybody. This is National Master Cengiz Hasman from Cyprus, and this is my video on how to beat a strong international master. In this game, my opponent was International Master Angelos Sandalakis from Greece, rated 2448. I was 2161 at the time, and this was played in Portugal, the Portugal Open, February 2018. I had the white pieces, and let's start. D4, knight f6, and I played the London system, which I did not have a great deal of experience, but it is quite easy to play once you've studied a bit. It's not as extensive as other openings or opening repertoires. My opponent went for a King's Indian or Grunfeld structure. I played knight c3, wanting to play e4. In my previous video, my opponent, Grandmaster Mahal, had played d5, a Grunfeld type of structure, not allowing me to play e4. But when my current opponent played bishop g7, I went for e4, taking the center. Nice position. He castled instead of playing d6. d6 would have put me off from playing e5 because I would like to keep my center, and it's important not to lose your center unless you achieve something concrete. He castled, and I could have developed my pieces or played e5. I decided to play e5. I pushed the knight back, and this knight doesn't have a decent square to move to, which is good for white. However, you need to remember that your opponent has given you the center for a reason, which is what I did. So I was expecting some pawn breaks such as d6, c5 and f6 at some stage. I developed with my queen, getting ready to potentially castle long. He played d6. It also opens the bishop. Knight f3, knight c6, and he wants to play bishop g4, maybe take my knight and then take my pawn on e5. I didn't want to allow this. You can pause the video if you like. What is a prophylactic move to stop him playing bishop g4? I played h3. This stops the bishop, and I'm trying to make this c8 bishop a bit bad. It's always important to try and make your opponent's pieces bad. It's like his knight on e8. He took, and then he took my queen. I didn't want to take with the bishop or the knight because it means losing my pawn on e5 and then letting this knight come out. I didn't see a problem with taking with the king because he doesn't have any immediate threats. Bishop f5, developing his bishop, getting ready to come on to bring his rook to the d file. I just, in anticipation of this, I just played rook d1. He checked, and then he took. Here looks like I've actually castled in one move, but I've spent quite a few moves. So, but it's not a problem because he's lost some time here. His pieces are cramped up, so not a problem. Again, I just took with the king. He played a6. He doesn't want my knight to come to b5 or my bishop to come to use this b5 square. And it's a good defensive move. It's important to restrict your opponent's pieces. I developed my knight to c4. It's a nice diagonal, this a2 g8 diagonal with quite a few squares available to control. He didn't like that. He played knight a5, but he did bring his knight to the side of the board. And I offered an exchange of bishops. After he took, I brought my c-pawn to d3, so it's become a central pawn. So I've got two central pawns, and this d3 pawn is stopping the knight being active, or stopping knight c4, which is a nice defensive move. If your moves can achieve more than one goal, if it can defend or attack and do something else, it's very good. You can actually win some time in chess. You can win some moves. He played f6, trying to undermine this e5 pawn. He wants to release his pieces, his bishop, his rook, and I don't want to take, because the bishop, he could take with the bishop or knight or rook, probably with the knight, I would think, and then move it. So I just played this e6 move, and this keeps the bishop bad. The rook can't move to a proper square, and the knight can move, but you can't always achieve everything you want. So it's give and take. He played f5, so he wants to bring the bishop out, maybe bring his knight from f to f6. A nice attacking central move, knight d5. I'm attacking the c7 pawn because I've got two pieces attacking it. He's only got one piece defending it, but more importantly, e7 is my main target, because if I can take it and then move my knight away, I've got an advanced passed pawn, and it will always be a threat to black, because it's only two squares away from promotion if I can take the c7 pawn. My opponent actually allowed me, which wasn't a good idea for the reasons I've just mentioned. So I happily accepted, saying check. After he moved, I just came back, and we have it, this nice e6 pawn. He played c6 because this knight was obviously annoying for him, and to be honest, I would have done the same. I should have played the nice knight b6 move. However, I played knight c7 because even though you don't really want to achieve, exchange this knight for this knight, because this knight isn't very active, my goal was, if he did exchange, I'll take it back, and then I'll attack this knight. The knight can't move. He has to play b6, which I take, and this, I mean, I've got good pieces. I've got a nice passed pawn, and I'll just be in the driving seat. He didn't exchange. He played bishop f6, and this is when I played e7. You can pause the video and think, why did I play this? Why am I actually giving this pawn to the bishop? And the reason is it's threatening to take the rook, and if he does take, I've got a nice double attack on the king and the rook, which would give me a very good advantage, well, a winning advantage really, with precise play. He moved his rook, and his rook has only got one good square really, which is not good for him, good for me. I brought my rook to the e file. I want to protect my passed pawn, and it's important to control as many squares on the chessboard. We have got, as you know, we've got 64 squares on the board, and the more you control, the more options your pieces have, and the less options your opponent's pieces have. He now comes and attacks this e7 pawn, which is obviously very sensible on his part. He wants to try and get rid of that and then activate his pieces. So I need to spring into action too. I didn't see a way of defending this, so I just had to accept this, and I played this knight. I didn't want to exchange it for this knight, as I thought my knight was more active. You shouldn't be doing your opponent favors, like exchanging a good piece of yours for one of his bad pieces or not so good pieces. He took, interestingly, he did allow a discovered check by the rook when if I move this knight. But unfortunate for me, there was nothing when I moved this knight. There was nothing for me to either take or attack. And the computer does confirm that taking this with the king was the best move for him. I did use my right for a discovered attack. I checked him. I moved my knight in between the king and rook, so this king is now saying check. He moved away, and I'm just trying to play active. So I played knight g5. I'm trying to hunt down his king, so to speak. So he needs to be careful. He played b6, which allowed me to take a6, and then he came and attacked my rook. It's important when one of your best pieces are attacked. It doesn't, apart from the king, obviously, it doesn't mean you have to do something about it right away. You can play like an in-between move, an intermediate move. I played knight f7 check. He can't obviously take because his king's under attack. He played king d7. I checked him again, and then he played king c8. After rook e7, we would reach a very interesting position, and I would like you to just have a look at this. Who do you think, pause the video please, who do you think is better, white, black, or do you think it's equal? Yes, so the reason I said it's interesting is because the computer actually suggests it's equal, but when you look at white's pieces, it seems like white is quite a bit better. Maybe not a winning position, but an advantageous position, because of all these pieces are doing some good stuff. He does have to be careful. His rook's not very good. His knight's on the back rank. This is on the side. His bishop's good. And my piece it's okay. Good rook, good knight, good bishop. So, but the thing is, even though the computer's giving equal evaluation, it's equal as long as you can play like a computer. Is black's position easy to play and to sustain this equality? I don't think so. I think it's easy to play white. So this is why I would have thought, without looking at a computer, I would say that white is better. Okay, he played g5. I can't leave this diagonal because this bishop is protecting my knight on b8. If I move it on to this diagonal, it means I'm losing my knight. So I retreat to h2. He plays f4. Now he blocks the bishop protecting the knight, so the king is actually attacking my knight, so I need to do something. I play knight d7, I'm threatening knight b6 check, and he needs to address this problem, which he does, of course. And think of a move, how can I free this bishop? How can I free this h2 bishop, which, as I said, it's not this at the moment, it's not controlling many squares. I mean, so it would like to return to its former glory days, like here, like now. It's controlling. Look how many squares it's controlling: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Whereas in this position, 1, it's at 2, 3. So even though the bishop is worth 3 points in both positions, we can obviously see that the bishop is doing a lot more in the previous position earlier. So yeah, the move I wanted you to find, I hope you found it, is h4. He can't defend, he can't keep his pawn chain intact by h6, because my knight can just take it on h6. So he decides to take, knight take, my bishop is liberated, and he plays a natural looking move, which is rook takes g2. This h-pawn suddenly becomes a passed pawn. However, after the move that I find, which is a good move, I become like plus 2.5, which means like 2.5 extra pawns according to the computer, and as long as both sides play like a computer. Okay, my move is, if you found it, it's knight f8. Why? Well, here I was able to take his knight, but he could have taken my one on d7, and if you can take a free knight as opposed to exchanging, giving yours for his, then obviously taking a free knight is better. If he had not played the move he played in the game and he played knight f6, the computer gives a 6-move mate starting with knight d6. I mean, at least the first few moves are quite easy to see. I don't know if I would have seen the whole 6-move mate, but I think I'd have got pretty close to it anyway, with all these pieces swarming around this king like bees. He didn't do this. He didn't play knight f6. He just played the practical rook f2, attacking my bishop. I have the chance of taking the knight, which I do. I say check, king b7, check again, and I'm threatening his king a lot. And here I was short of time. I'm not sure how many minutes I had, maybe 5 or 6, and the link showing the DGT board, the moves, doesn't show the time, but that's I remember I was in time trouble, so I was having to focus 100%, because it's not very often you get these these winning positions against such strong opponents. I mean, we're talking about an strong international master, 24-48, probably wanting to become a grandmaster, on his way to become a grandmaster, and I've got, you know, a winning position, but not much time. So it would obviously be a shame from my point of view to throw this game away. So it requires full concentration. So yes, I'm bringing my knight to protect this bishop, and then maybe take this bishop, his bishop. He's trying to give his king some squares. The bishop protects a7. I say check, I say check again, I check again, and then I just change my move. I mean, I didn't want to repeat 3 times because my opponent could claim a draw, and it's important in when you're in time trouble, you can use this technique of repeating the position twice, gaining some valuable time on your clock for future moves, but you need to be careful not to repeat it 3 times. And I decided to take this bishop. He took mine. I'm offering my knight, but in return for rook a7 mate. My knights are very dangerous, and I do gain a bit of time on the clock, and I changed my move, and then I decided to give this b4 knight for his b7 knight, and then I moved my knight out of danger. I'm attacking b5. He makes his king very active, and bearing in mind I don't have much time, I have to be careful. If he gets like my pawn on d3, and then if I blunder, he can checkmate me with rook f1. I mean, we can just sort of let's just look at this. I'm not making fantastic moves for white. This would lead to an embarrassing checkmate. So it's something I needed to be careful about. Anyway, I played king e2. I'm making my king more active. I'm protecting my d3 pawn, and in the endgame, it's important to know the theoretical positions. If I was careless and I just gave these 2 pawns in return for perhaps these 3 pawns, my opponent would be able to get a draw against rook versus rook knight if he played correctly. And as I knew this, I wanted to protect at least one of my pawns. Now I'm starting to collect some pawns and making my king more active, which is very important in the endgame. I checked him, he moved away from my d3 pawn, he's attacking my a2 pawn. I attack his rook. Now I just take his h4 pawn for my a2 pawn. I was confident I would win this position as long as I stopped this, as long as I was careful with that pawn. And he's about to queen, but I stop him with knight d2, protecting the b1 square twice for my rook and knight. And if he was careless, if he just moved his rook here, he would be embarrassed with this simple checkmate. Of course, he's not going to do that. He moved out of harm's way. I checked again. He played rook. Okay, he played king a4. And I want you to pause the video here, and this is something important in endgames. Why does white have to be careful? So I played knight e5 actually. This is to help you, and he resigned. If I played my king, what might he have achieved? So please pause the video. My opponent resigned because if I had played something like king f2, he could have just played a move like this. And if I made the mistake of taking it, this would actually be a stalemate, because his king it can't move. So this is why I played this knight e5 move, and then he resigned because he saw his king's cut off by the rook. He doesn't want to exchange rooks because knight and pawn is a winning ending. And then I'm just going to be pushing this with the rooks on the board. I'm just going to be pushing this pawn to promotion. So, how did I beat a strong international master? Some key points. I gave 100%. I wasn't afraid. I was aggressive when necessary, and I was also solid when necessary. I didn't take unnecessary risks. And something that high-rated players do, even if they're not title players, if you reach equal positions with them, most of them will take some risks. And if you're ready to punish them when they do that, you can score some good victories, in my opinion. And my opponent, he didn't want to go for symmetrical pawn formation. So he didn't want to play like something like d4, d5. He wanted to mix things up a bit, hope that I would make some mistakes. But unfortunately for him, I didn't make any serious mistakes, and he made more mistakes than me. So yes, thank you very much for watching, and see you in another video. Bye.